Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rome.
In our top story, Israel has announced plans to withhold funds from the Palestinian Authority for its continued terror activity, as well as its unlawful campaign against Israel at the United Nations. The PA continues to pay monthly stipends to the families of terrorists, which encourages Arabs to commit violence against Jews. It has acted against the Oslo Accords and launched a series of calculated unilateral moves against the Jewish state at the United Nations, resulting in a probe by the Bias International Criminal Court. Israel's Knesset announced plans to introduce a series of punitive measures against the Palestinian Authority. Newly elected Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich explained that the PA continues to encourage terror and is an enemy of Israel. He said that 139 million shekels in taxes that Israel collected on behalf of the PA will be reallocated to compensate the Israeli victims of Palestinian terror attacks. The fees will be withheld to offset hundreds of millions of shekels that the PA uses to fund its notorious pay-to-slay program. In addition, the Knesset announced that it will be cracking down on illegal Palestinian construction in Judea and Samaria.
The United Kingdom will finally designate the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terror group. According to a report in The Telegraph, the British government's decision to blacklist the notorious militia came after the organization was involved in several plots to kidnap and murder UK citizens. Ken McCallum, the Director General of MI5, told Sky News that Iran presents threats to the UK directly through its aggressive intelligence services. This includes ambitions to kidnap or even kill British or UK-based individuals perceived as enemies of the regime. He said there were at least 10 such potential threats in 2022. The United States, Israel, and Canada have already banned the terror group, and Germany and the European Union are considering similar moves. The IRGC has been involved in numerous kidnappings, assassinations, and terror attacks around the world.
The Israeli Knesset has voted to expedite the revocation of citizenship and residency for convicted terrorists. The Jewish state faces a major dilemma with a sector of the Arab Israeli population that enjoys all of the benefits of the only democracy in the Middle East, yet still chooses to participate in anarchy and terrorism. Current Israeli law calls for the rescission of citizenship for those involved in terrorism, but allows these individuals to retain their residency rights. The new law would see the citizenship and residency of convicted terrorists revoked. Simcha Rothman, a member of the Knesset who helped draft the bill, explained that the Palestinian Authority recruits Arabs with Israeli citizenship to carry out terror attacks because it's easier for them to do so. He said the bare minimum we can do as a moral country is to revoke their citizenship and residency simultaneously.
Israeli, American, and Egyptian officials joined representatives of the Abraham Accords in Abu Dhabi to plan for the second Negev Forum Summit. The inaugural meeting was held last year, where representatives from Israel, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and the United States gathered in Israel's desert. They discussed cooperation in confronting regional challenges in the fields of health, security, education, tolerance, water and food security, tourism, and energy. Israel's Foreign Minister Eli Cohen said that Israel places great importance on cooperation with the countries of the Forum in dealing with challenges we face. The Israeli delegation will present various projects that will improve the quality of life of the residents of Israel and the Middle East.
More than 70% of the United Nations Human Rights Council members are non-democratic countries. A recent report released by UN Watch reveals that an overwhelming majority of UNHRC members are not democracies and that many of them are accused of egregious human rights violations. Hillel Neuer, the executive director of UN Watch, told ILTV that the election of regimes like China, Cuba, and Pakistan to the highest human rights body is like naming Al Capone and his gang to fight organized crime. The United States and Israel have accused the UNHRC of operating with an obsessive focus on Israel, which is the only country with a dedicated issue regularly debated on the Council.
German authorities have thwarted a major Iranian chemical attack. A 32-year-old Iranian national and his brother were arrested on suspicion of planning an Islamist attack using cyanide and ricin in western Germany. Authorities raided the suspect's apartment in the middle of the night wearing full hazmat gear in order to intercept the chemical weapon. The German newspaper Bild reported that a friendly intelligence service tipped off the German authorities about the plot leading to the arrest of the suspects. Israel has not commented on its involvement, but the Mossad has been instrumental in thwarting numerous attempted Iranian terror plots in dozens of countries throughout the world.
The United Arab Emirates has announced that it will begin teaching about the Holocaust in its primary and secondary schools. This is the first time that an Arab country has adopted Holocaust studies. The move comes just 2 years after the Gulf states signed the historic Abraham Accords, normalizing ties with the Jewish state. The UAE has also established the only Holocaust museum in the Arab world. The curriculum for the new program will be developed in conjunction with Israel's official Holocaust memorial, Yad Vashem.
The U.S. government has given an ancient archaeological artifact looted from Israel to the Palestinian Authority. The Assyrian incense spoon, which dates from between 700 to 800 BCE, was pillaged from the ancient Jewish city of Hebron. The book of Genesis, chapter 23, describes Abraham's purchase of a cave in Hebron to be used as a burial chamber for his wife Sarah and their descendants. David was anointed the king of Israel and ruled from Hebron for 7.5 years. Jews have maintained a continuous presence in the sacred city of the patriarchs for 3,800 years, contrary to the Arabs who only conquered Hebron in the 7th century of the Common Era. Now, despite the clear and well-documented historical lineage of Jewish ancestry in the city, the United States chose for the first time to repatriate an archaeological artifact found there to the Palestinian Authority. This troubling development could set a precedent for the further reallocation of relics to the PA, which is known for its rampant destruction of Jewish and Christian antiquities.
More than 400 precious items hidden by Jews during World War II have been discovered in Poland. A recent renovation on the site of what used to be a synagogue just outside of the Litzmannstadt ghetto in Lodz yielded a treasure trove of sacred Jewish objects. These precious heirlooms, including menorahs and ceremonial cups for the blessing on the wine, were found wrapped in newspapers dating to around October of 1939. Archaeologists in Poland believe that the items were buried in a hurry by Jewish families who were ordered to report to the ghetto, which held more than 200,000 Jews, most of whom perished there or were deported to concentration camps. Polish authorities say that the precious items will be handed over to the Museum of Archaeology in Lodz.
Educational institutions in the Richmond, Michigan school district were closed after an anti-Semitic threat was issued. The Click on Detroit news outlet reported that all schools in the area were shuttered after staff members at a Richmond community school received a handwritten warning. Police said the message contained anti-Semitic remarks towards the administrators of the institution as well as their families. Richmond police took the threat seriously and designated it as high priority. All schools in the district were closed for the remainder of the week. Anti-Jewish sentiment and violence against Jews has skyrocketed in the United States, resulting in increasing fear among the Jewish community. Anti-Semitic incidents in New York City have more than doubled over the last 2 years, with a series of vicious crimes against Jews.
The city of David in Jerusalem is preparing to open its excavation of the ancient pilgrimage road. Archaeologists have been working for over a decade to expose the 2,000-year-old thoroughfare, which is located just outside of the old city walls. This massive road and marketplace was once the main artery of ancient Jerusalem. It connects the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount. During the 3 pilgrimage holidays, when Jews are commanded to go up to Jerusalem, millions of Jews would use this path to ascend to Mount Moriah to offer their sacrifices at the temple. Archaeologists have been working feverishly to clear the tunnel and to expose the original stone of the 2,000-year-old footpath. They still have about 300 feet to excavate, and they estimate that the project will be open to the public within 2 years.
Archaeologists at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and the University of Haifa have proven that silver coins were used as currency in the land of Israel 3,600 years ago. Historians previously believed that the use of coins for payment began in the 12th century before the Common Era. But this new research predates that idea by some 500 years. Silver coins minted in Anatolia, Turkey, have recently been discovered at excavations in Shiloh as well as Tel Gezer. The researchers explained that they have known that trade existed in the Iron Age, but their recent findings move the beginning of such trade in metals back at least 5 centuries, making these coins the first currency in the Holy Land.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Aryeh Lightstone. He's special envoy to the Abraham Accords. Aryeh, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Josh, for having me.
Really exciting position, credible success. Tell us a little about what went into that.
So I had the opportunity to be the special envoy for economic normalization for the Abraham Accords for 123 days. Those are the most exciting 123 days that I had of my professional career, but also I think the most exciting 123 days of U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East in either of our lifetimes.
You know, you wrote a book about it, Let My People Know. It's phenomenal. I just had a chance to read it. Tell us a little about what went into doing that.
Yeah, so writing the book was actually something that I was passionate about because for 4 years I had a chance to be David Friedman's chief of staff, and we had lots of visitors come in, Jewish, Christian, Bible-believing, not yet Bible-believing, who would come in and meet with us, and it was my job to articulate the U.S.-Israel relationship and why it worked, and what the Abraham Accords were and why they were important, and that's what I had just a chance to do, put down into paper, because we don't have that job anymore.
The Trump administration brought probably the greatest time in Israel-American relations, recognition of the Golan Heights, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, canceling of the Iran deal. I mean, it really was the best time. How was it being involved in all those decisions and seeing it all go down?
So having a chance to watch many of those decisions happen while being in the room, or have a chance to implement those decisions immediately after they were made was really historic and incredibly exciting and frankly humbling. It's almost impossible to describe what it feels like now that we're only 2, 3, 4 years after that fact, right? It's a given that our embassy is in Jerusalem. It's a given that the Golan Heights is recognized as part of Israel. It's a given that you can get on a direct flight and fly from here to UAE, Morocco, Bahrain. I mean, it's incredible.
It's really unbelievable, and a lot of people don't know this about you, but you're actually an ordained rabbi. So how is it from a spiritual point of view, being in Israel, seeing the fulfillment of prophecy, seeing this all unfold?
Well, out of all the things about being a rabbi, it was incredibly profound and meaningful, and it was great working with David, who himself is a very practicing and deep believer. Much of the group, much of the Trump administration felt that what we were doing was not purely how do we get things done, but really is there a higher calling here? And the best way to describe the higher calling was there was no such thing as a day that we had off, other than the Sabbath, of course. It was a 24/7 pursuit because it was a passion more than it was a job.
It's also amazing, and you go into this in the book, but you're an American, you're a diplomat, you're a rabbi, and you're negotiating these peace deals with Muslim countries. What kind of perspective did that give you?
Oh, it gave me a great perspective that if we don't respect ourselves, nobody else will respect us. And just to look at the 4 years that we had in a nutshell, all of the previous diplomacy that the United States of America had said, if only we're just a little bit less American, if only we can get the Israelis to be a little less Jewish, then maybe they'll fit in better in the Middle East. We took the exact opposite approach. Israel is the one and only forever homeland of the Jewish people. The more Jewish, the more it's the homeland, the more it's understood, the more we, the United States of America, stand with them and it as it is, the more the rest of the world will come to respect that. So we've discovered that stand for what you believe in, care about what you believe in, and peace will follow. Retreat, and you're going to wind up with the chaos that we've come to know with the Middle East.
A lot of people said that the moves that you made during the Trump administration were going to lead to bloodshed, a third intifada. They said it's important to be politically correct, but really, isn't it more important to be biblically correct? Because now, from following those policies, we're seeing real peace.
Yeah, well, Josh, you've led the biblically correct, I think, movement throughout parliaments throughout the world, and I think you've got people who decide that I want to stick with, history and truth over sticking with what's recent and what's a fad. You know, they call it woke today, they'll call it something else tomorrow. Really, at the end of the day, it's just not true. And we know that anything that's based upon something that's not true just isn't going to stand. The Bible was true 4,000 years ago. It's true today. It'll be true in 4,000 years from now. Just like Jerusalem. I don't know if one of my favorite stories about Menachem Begin, when he went to go meet with Margaret Thatcher. Menachem Begin was the first sort of conservative prime minister, and Margaret Thatcher, the conservative prime minister of England. So he was asked before that meeting, am I going to ask her to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel? And he pondered that for a bit, and he responded to the press and said, I will if she asked me to recognize London as the capital of the United Kingdom. Meaning there's a fact. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. It was a shame on America for not recognizing that. Israel knew that all along.
There's a lot of buzz now that we're going to have Saudi Arabia added to the peace agreements, that they're going to be the next country. Do you foresee that happening?
I think that we have determined that peace and the Abraham Accord, sort of as the rubric that we call it, will put every country in the region on a timeline of when and not if. Now, Saudi Arabia needs to make a decision. When is it best for Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords? Just like Pakistan will make that decision, Indonesia will make that decision, Mauritania will make that decision. Every country will decide at some point in time that making peace pays far more than the opposite.
Aryeh, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
I think the message that I'd like to leave for all of you is be proud of who you are. Be excited about who you are. That's why I wrote the book, Let My People Know. The Abraham Accords under any other administration during any other time would have been touted as one of the greatest accomplishments, not just in foreign policy, but total of the century. It wasn't acknowledged, it wasn't recognized because of the administration that had happened under. Peace in the Middle East is a good thing. Peace through strength is the only way to achieve it. Peace throughout the region will make America strong, will make Israel strong, will make the entire region stronger, and ultimately will be able to hurt and hinder our enemies. So focus on the Abraham Accords. Get my book, Let My People Know, and be proud of who you are and stand for what you believe in.
Thank you, Aryeh, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom, and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Sam Grundwerg, World Chairman of Karen Hayesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. After 2,000 years, we found the descendants of the lost tribe of Dan. The Jewish people of Ethiopia need your support. Please join us in welcoming them home to Israel. God bless you from Jerusalem.
In that day, the Lord will reach out his hand to reclaim the surviving remnant of his people from Assyria, from Egypt, from Cush, from Elam, from Babylonia, from Hamat, and from the islands of the Mediterranean. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 11. Through their deep faith, Roy and Yuklin Chen, a devout Bible-believing Christian couple from Hong Kong, received a sign from heaven revealing their personal mission in life to help realize God's promise to return the exiled people of Israel back to their ancestral homeland. 1 year after the historic and inspirational journey to Ethiopia, Roy and Yuklin Chen have witnessed the prophetic vision gathering momentum through the continuation of the Ethiopian Jewish community's Aliyah to Israel. Within the last year alone, some 1,400 Ethiopians have returned to Israel through the assistance of Karen Hayesod, but many more have yet to complete their journey.
To have the whole prophecy being lived out right before us was simply overwhelming. Not only was it difficult to see the people in the camps waiting to go back to Israel, but when Father God gave us a message to share with them, which was simply that Abba, Father, has not forgotten them, that every one of them will be brought back to their homeland. And to use a couple that's living on the other side of the world, doesn't even know where Cush is or what Cush is, that's the length that father will go to reach his children.
Roy and Yuklin came to Bangkok to an event hosted by the Friends of Israel of Keren Hayesod. They were joined by 1,500 Christian worshipers who gathered to help the fulfillment of the biblical prophecy come true.
Now Israel is 70 years old. It is time that we bring Israel home so that we can join to our brothers and be one new man.
We believe it is our privilege, each and every one of us, the Gentiles, to rally around our brothers and sisters in Israel and to take part in what the Lord has already set in motion.
Roy and Yuklin know that their mission has only just begun and are committed to making sure that all the remaining Ethiopian Jews are brought home to Israel.
The biggest blessing is not that, oh, if I give, then I will get financial reward. The biggest blessing is to know that your God is real and He keeps every one of His promises. And every promise that is made to you is going to happen because He answered the prayers of His people and they are coming home. And you can be a part of it.
He will raise a banner from the nations and gather the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 12.
Together we will bring all our brothers and sisters back to Jerusalem.
Now is the time to act. There is still so much more we can do. Join the Chens and Keren Hayesod in this fulfillment of the biblical prophecy.
Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, visit khisrael.org.
And now, Shining Light from Israel.
The Golan Heights stretches roughly about 700 square miles, but its topography changes greatly. In the north, you have Mount Hermon, which rises up about 10,000 feet above sea level. Right in the heart of the Golan Heights, in its capital, in the city of Katzrin, is one of 12 Talmudic villages that has been discovered here in this beautiful volcanic plateau. The Talmudic period in Judaism is defined as the period in which the oral tradition that was given to Moses on top of Mount Sinai, at the same time as the written Torah, was codified and written down on a piece of parchment. Here in the Talmudic village of Katzrin, unlike in a museum, one can actually touch the antiquity. Walk through the homes in which man lived over 1,500 years ago. Notice where the windows are placed and the entranceways to their homes, the ladder which led up to the bedroom. Even here in the dining room, where I'm sitting right now, the food was elevated above ground. Why? So all of these questions can be answered while you explore the ancient Talmudic village here in the city of Katzrin. Another great way to interact with the history here is to discover the tools that they use to build their homes, from the hammer and chisel to the pulley systems that they use to lift these heavy basalt stones. One of the predominant trees is the olive, and this is because the Golan Heights has the perfect climate for growing olives. And in ancient Golan, they produced a tremendous amount of olive oil. And there were several olive presses discovered here. This happens to be one of them. And how was the olive oil produced? Well, they would take their freshly picked olives, and then either somebody, like a human, or a beast of burden would push this around, crushing those olives, extracting the olive oil. Of course, this was the first press. The second press is they would fill up these baskets with the sludge, with the remnant of the first crushing, and they would stick it underneath the press over here. And then with a system of pulleys and weights, they would crush that and you'd have the second pressing. And then last but not least, in order to make sure that they get every bit of oil out of that olive, they would take the baskets and they would put it underneath this press, and again, really tightly, they would twist this all the way down, squeezing those olives to the maximum possible, extracting the last drop of olive oil. And the best part about this place is everything you see here is completely interactive. Let's go visit one of the modern olive producers here in the Golan Heights, Aryeh Essence. So we saw how they pressed olives in ancient times. Well, with modern Israeli innovation, we've been able to maximize what we're able to do with the olive, both in extracting its oil, but also using its refuse, which at one time was considered to be toxic. Here at Aryeh Essence, they've taken that toxic refuse and developed a line of cosmetic products that is world-renowned. And the best part about coming here is that you get to try the product and taste the olive oil. There are so many activities that tourists can do here in the Golan Heights besides visiting the ancient sites. Many families enjoy going on ATV tours, hiking through the most pristine valleys with gorgeous waterfalls and an abundant amount of wildlife.
I hope on your next travels through the Holy Land, you'll make a point to visit Katzrin.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.